Welcome to the Retro Video Store Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to the Retro Video Store Podcast. I'm your host, Eric.
Hi, Eric.
And that's my co-host, Neil.
I'm Neil. And who is back with both shoulders nearly completely healed?
I'll fuck anything that moves.
David.
Tell us something we didn't know,
Yeah,
Dave.
yeah. I think I'll go to biography's name. Yeah, how is your shoulder? Your shoulder doing better?
Well, I had to go get an injection this week to help break up the scar tissue, but it seems like it actually
shit. You can lift them both up, yeah?
Yeah, it was just stuck. I had frozen shoulder. You guys could see like the last couple of weeks. Like as much as I exercised, like it was just here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's helping.
For the viewer, for the listener at home, David is wearing a New Mexico sweatshirt, repping the 505.
That's right.
Got his green chili tattoos with the Zia symbol right below it.
So, yes. So, welcome to the Retro Video Store. If you're a first-time listener, we're three idiots who talk about movies. And Neil provided us a new logo, which you can now see on our website and uploaded with each new episode. So, thanks, Neil. Looks pretty good. I like it a lot.
Yep. Three idiots. Countless opinions.
Yes, good stuff. So, new year, new look. Same three dudes. We switched it up this week because as if you're a film fan, which probably you are if you're listening to the podcast, David Lynch died. So I figured that in honor of David Lynch, we would watch one of his more controversial movies and talk about his movies in general and what impact he has or has not had on us as moviegoers. So we're talking about Blue Velvet today from 1986. And before we jump into that, we'll do what we always do. Neil, what did you watch this week?
So I was cruising around and I saw like a random clip, and it was Batman in feudal Japan, and it was a really cool cartoon. It was called like Ninja Batman, I think is what it was.
Yeah, I've seen a preview of that before.
Yeah, so I watched that. That was really fun. And then I guess my TV was paying attention. I went to Max, and there's all kinds of like animated superhero movies. So I watched a butt ton of cartoons, and they were all really good. All sorts of DC, like Flashpoint Paradox, and God, who's the one that killed Superman?
Doomsday.
Yeah, there's one with Doomsday. I watched that.
Yeah, I've seen both of those. Those were actually pretty good.
And then just randomly watched Rush Hour, and then I started watching this another animated series on Netflix called Arcane, and I guess they just released a second season for it. Huh. And it's good. It's really cool.
What's the one that James Gunn just put out? It's like kind of like Suicide Squad, but it's like a Monster Squad or something. It's a weird one, but it's supposed to have been pretty good. It just came out.
Yeah, I've heard people talking about it because apparently they're going to use the talk is the design they did for Batman in that they're going to do with the new live action one they're planning, which I didn't know they were. I was hoping we get a new Robert Pattinson Batman because I liked his Batman.
I think they're kind of like two distinct things. There's supposed to be a Batman in James Gunn's universe that shows up in those movies, but Matt Reeves, I think, is the one who did the Batman, is still going to do the ones with what's his name, Robert Pattinson, I think, which I still haven't seen. I still have not set by 3 hours to watch that, even though I've watched Blue Velvet twice this week.
A little sad. Just to picture you there all by yourself, just watching that. Little sad.
With my light shining in my face.
Well, you should turn that off because
light.
then it would be dark.
Now it's dark.
Was it me, or I can't hear that without hearing Anthrax?
Yeah. Now it's dark. You can't see. Don't you
fucking look at me. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that. David, how about you? What did you watch this week?
I watched American Primeval.
I've seen advertisements for it. How is it?
It was really good. Definitely worth watching if you live where I live, surrounded by that religion.
What's it about?
It's about the Mormon massacre that I can't 18 whatever took place in kind of south central Utah, no southern Utah, and outside of Cedar City there, and where they the Mormons dressed up as somebody else and went and attacked this camp and then blamed it on somebody else, and all kinds of violence ensued, and it was done really well. And I'll say the scene where they attacked that camp was just one of the it was really well done and intense, and it's short. I think it's only 6 episodes, but it was really, really good.
What is it streaming on?
I watched it on
Netflix.
Netflix. Yep. Yeah, it was really, really good.
The advertisement shows a scene with a stampede that looks really brutal. I think it's a stampede. There's like,
yeah, that's the one. That's the scene. It just happens, and it's lasts a couple of minutes, and it's super intense, and it was so well done. And that's what got me into it. Is the first episode, you see that scene, and you're like, okay, I got to finish this series. And it was super violent series, but you hear the lore of the area and the religion and what happened, and just being here. So I felt like I really needed to watch it, and glad I did. And then spent days going down rabbit holes reading about it, conspiracy theories and all that good stuff. So
the last podcast on the left is a really good series on Brigham Young. That was pretty good, pretty interesting. And Joseph Smith and the whole Mormonism and stuff was pretty interesting. It's like a 3-part episode.
I watched the one that South Park did. I liked that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this one really breaks down. This one really breaks down the of course the Mormons aren't happy with the portrayal of or Brigham Young in this one, and the thing is, like, how much did Brigham Young really know about what happened? Did he order it? He said he didn't order it. So it's like, yeah, it was worth watching. It was really cool, and it's super well done too. I mean, you don't see a lot of westerns that era that were just so violent. This TV show was so violent, it was kick ass. Eric?
Yep.
You're waiting, Eric. What did you watch?
What did I watch? I watched a lot this week. I was homesick one day because my knee has been hurting. So one day I just elevated it all day and just watched movies. And I was going down the Tubi rabbit hole just to see what I could find as the most explicit movie available on Tubi. And there's this movie called Romance. It's this really awful French movie, and it's just really graphic, but it was boring. I only watched like half of it because it's very like philosophical about sex, and it's very explicit and everything. And it tries to be controversial, kind of like, but doesn't succeed because it makes sex look boring. So it had the opposite effect of being interesting. It was just so I just stopped it halfway through. And then I watched a movie on Shudder called Irreversible, which I will not recommend to anybody because it is awful. It is Gaspar Noé directed. It's very infamous because it's kind of done in reverse order, where this guy goes and just kills this other guy who assaults his girlfriend. And it's done in a very disorienting way. And the music's really aggressive. The cutting is really aggressive. It's really handheld and is always constantly moving. And it's kind of like, makes you want to vomit watching it. And it's just super graphic. And I sat all the way through it. I can't, just because it's one of those movies that you're like, oh, if you like transgressive movies, you got to watch this one. And so I finally watched it because it's on Shudder, and I was less than impressed. I think it's another movie that tries too hard to shock you. It's like a kind of edgelord movie, tries to be too edgy. And it does. It's kind of gross in the sense that it's disorienting, and it's got really loud music. But it was just, it's like, look how cool I am. It's like the edgy 10th grader or something, I didn't find it very, very compelling. But then I did watch something that I loved, RoboCop. And RoboCop 2 has been on MGM Plus. So they had the director's cut of RoboCop on Max right now. So if you want to see uncensored blood squibs at the beginning of of RoboCop. Just watch that one. It is so amazing when that poor OCP executive gets drilled, by RoboCop, and they cut away in the R-rated version, but in the director's cut, that guy gets shot for like 4 or 5 seconds longer, and it's just blah, 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 blah. just like a blood fountain, and it makes it even more funny and dark. So yeah, watch that. And then when I heard David Lynch died, I went on a David Lynch rabbit hole. I watched a lot of his short films, like David Lynch's Alphabet, which is on on YouTube. You should check that out. It's very disturbing. There's a David Lynch one called The Grandmother, and there's one called Rabbits. Then I watched a lot of like tributes and podcasts, and then I watched Blue Velvet twice. And did you guys watch the Siskel and Ebert review of Blue Velvet that I sent you to watch?
Part of it.
Yeah,
part of it. After they were arguing for a while, I was like, oh, okay, checking out. Don't need this in my life right now.
Yeah, it was just kind of fun. Roger Ebert really did not like David Lynch until the Straight Story and Mulholland Drive. He did not like any of his movies until then. And we'll talk about that when we read the critical consensus about what he had to say. But yeah, let's talk about Blue Velvet. David, have you seen this before?
Yeah. I watched it back in probably the early 2000s. You recommended it, and I think you had shown me Elephant Man or something like that. They do,
or Eraserhead, probably,
or I thought I did Elephant Man. But yeah, Eraserhead or something like that. And so I watched Blue Velvet and I liked it. It's still great.
Neil, I know you watched this really early because we used to talk about it all the time.
Yeah. But I couldn't even remember when I first saw this, but I know it was probably with you. I don't remember us ever renting this.
This is one of those movies that didn't come to Farmington. I'm pretty sure it did not come to Farmington because it didn't really have a wide release, but I read about it in like Rolling Stone and how controversial it was. And then before it was released on video, I saw the Siskel and Ebert video of the episode of them arguing and how Siskel liked it and Ebert thought it was exploitative and it wasn't very good or he thought it was effective, but he didn't like it what he did to in some of the scenes, and he thought he was trying to be funny when he wasn't, and then there's some legitimacy to what Roger Ebert says, but it was interesting to see them argue about it so much. And I was reading in some other like magazines that I used to read as a kid. Because this is one of those movies that when I first saw it kind of freaked me out because I had to be about 14 or 15 and had rented it, or maybe I saw it on HBO and I was just like, what the hell? What did I just watch? Am I supposed to laugh at this part? What am I supposed to do with this? And it really kind of opened my eyes as a young moviegoer that there's a whole bunch of movies out there that aren't meant just to entertain you. They're maybe to make you feel awful a little bit or make you think about what you watched. And I wasn't used to that. Everything was just like, let's watch Roadhouse, let's watch all the everything that was popular. And this is like the first real art house movie that I had seen, and it kind of shocked me.
Well, yeah, I would agree, but I think that was part of what, because we both saw this in high school, and I know I watched this movie with you. Mm-hmm. I think that was the reason why, as kids, we were so drawn to it, because it was different and it was difficult to make sense of. Parts of it as a grown ass man were like, God, fucking stop, shut up. But as a kid, not really having your expectations met when you watch the movie.
Yeah, totally.
There was no clear hero. I mean, what Kyle MacLachlan, his character, who I'm going to remember the name, whatever, was kind of a giant. Jeffrey was kind of a giant piece of shit.
Yeah, because what does Lord Dern say to him? I don't know if you're a pervert or a private investigator or whatever. And he said, that's for me to know and you to find out. And it's him being pervy and something's going on with him. And even his, and I never really noticed it until watching this in HD that he had this little wussy little earring.
That was what you kept texting. His earring bothers me.
Yeah, but it was just like he's trying to be edgy. He came back from college, and he thinks he's a little bit older than everybody else, and and he is kind of he's supposed to be a good guy, but he's kind of a shit, and he's not 100% likable. And like what you said,
which is hard. It's hard to say that for somebody that can do the chicken walk.
Yeah, the chicken walk.
It's that was a tough one. I'm like, I really want to like this guy. He can do the chicken walk for no reason whatsoever.
He likes Heineken.
He likes Heineken. He had a chance to do the chicken walk in front of a whole high school full of girls to impress. He chose not to. He can show some restraint. Good for him.
So going back to David Lynch, the first movie I ever saw by him was The Elephant Man. And it came out in like 81 or 82.
Is that the one with Anthony Hopkins?
Yes, Anthony Hopkins and John Hurt. Amazing movie. And it's shot in this super stark black and white. Beautiful cinematography. And I remember it came out in 1980. And I was really, really young. And I was fascinated by The Elephant Man because I think my aunt had like a Guinness Book of World Records. And in the middle of it, they had pictures of the Guinness Book of people in the Guinness Book of World Record, and they had a picture of John Merrick as the Elephant Man, and I just thought it was so weird. And my aunt Mona, she was really into the esoteric and the occult and that kind of stuff. And I had an Aunt Aline who was also very into it. My dad was a little bit into it too. So I always had kind of a spooky, weird kind of like vibe going on when it came to UFOs and all that kind of stuff. And I remember reading that and feeling really sorry for him. And then that movie came out, and I watched it way too young. I had to be like 8 or 9 when I watched it, and I felt really, really sad. And I saw David Lynch directed, but I didn't pay attention to it because I didn't pay attention to directors and stuff back then. That just wasn't something I did because I was just a kid. And then watching Dune and seeing that he directed that too, and I'm like, that's a really big difference between The Elephant Man and Dune. And Dune was a big flop. And then Blue Velvet came out.
He added so much stuff to Dune. In a book like that, it's not necessarily the best move.
Yeah.
But so many people know the source material so well. That'd be like saying, all right, I'm going to make a movie about a guy that gets bitten by a radioactive spider, and he can make cheese curds through sheer force of will.
Curd man. Yes. There's some very David Lynch-esque things in Dune that I like. Some of the characters are really odd, and they do weird, not Lynchian things. Since we can talk about him in a that descriptor. And then Blue Velvet came out, and this is when I was 13, so I just started really getting into movies as far as like reading about them. And that, like I said, this is the first art house movie. But then when I was at UNM, I went to a midnight viewing of Eraserhead with all the other people in my on the same level in my dorm, and that blew me away. That was like, holy shit, that's the weirdest movie I've ever seen. And it took that title for a long, long time. But I think that's kind of like a rite of passage when you're young and you want to watch a weird ass movie. They're like, all right, heavy metal, Pink Floyd The Wall, Eraserhead, Holy Mountain, Texas Chainsaw or something like that. Those are the kind of like those kind of rite of passage movies when you're young to watch weird shit.
Still haven't seen Eraserhead.
I can guarantee that you would not like it. It's got some really great visuals, and it's all about the fear of being a parent. And it's very bleak and industrial, and the protagonist has a baby with his girlfriend. We don't know if his girlfriend is just odd or has special needs or whatever, but they had this weird little baby, and it doesn't even look human. It looks really, really freakish, and then he has to deal with it, and it's just also, I mean, it's just weird as shit. A weird movie, and he made it when he was in the still in an art school, and it took a long time for him to complete. He just made it on the weekends and stuff, and then it became like an art house phenomena. And Mel Brooks saw it and loved it and gave him the chance to make The Elephant Man. So Mel Brooks was a big kind of
That's kind of a leap
supporter.
between Mel Brooks movies and David Lynch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mel Brooks even produced The Fly, David Cronenberg's The Fly. It was a Brooks Films production. So it was just kind of cool to think that he was producing all these other movies that were just completely different than what you know Mel Brooks to be.
We're men in tights. Yes, we are. Sorry, messing with my understanding of Mel Brooks.
Well, I just remember watching The History of the World Part 1 over and over and over again when I was young, and just thinking that was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Well, until we saw Monty Python.
Yeah, but it was just another one of those funny movies where it's just done with Jews in space and the Inquisition musical and all that kind of stuff. Stupid fun. All right, let's talk about. Can you hit us up with the Internet Movie Database tagline?
The discovery of a severed human ear found in a field leads a young man on an investigation related to a beautiful, mysterious nightclub singer and a group of psychopathic criminals who have kidnapped her child. All one sentence.
And is Dorothy really a singer?
I do believe we may have exchanged some thoughts on that in the chat in our little thread there.
The Blue Lady, Dorothy Valens. But then you listen to other people who are popular singers. She's not that far off from other people who are popular.
Auto-tune, maybe. I don't know. But not at the time, but definitely not that great of a singer.
Lana Del Rey does a version of Blue Velvet, and she shot a video that's very kind of homage to the movie. And she doesn't quite sound that much better than Isabella Rossellini in this movie.
The first time I heard Lana Del Rey was when she was on Saturday Night Live, and that was enough to make me never want to listen to Lana Del Rey again.
I actually like her. A couple of her songs, she has some good stuff. She had a terrible Saturday Night Live performance.
Oh,
it was awful, and it was panned for a long, long time. But she has a couple of decent songs.
Okay, take your word for it. I'm not going to go out. I'm not going to go out looking for it.
David, let's pause for a minute. How's the game?
It's over.
It's over.
Yeah.
Bills won.
Bills won.
All right. Yay!
But Eric, it was Elephant Man that you recommended that I watch that made me watch Blue Velvet.
Mm-hmm.
Not Eraserhead. I've never seen Eraserhead.
Oh, Jamie bought me a autographed copy of Eraserhead. It's in a box set. It's a DVD, not a Blu-ray. This is before Blu-ray came out, but it's got David Lynch's signature on it, and it's got a really cool package and stuff like that. I still have it. So I have a David Lynch signed copy of Eraserhead. I have a T-shirt of Eraserhead.
We got to blame Jamie for encouraging this shit too. She's got to hold some responsibility.
Yeah.
She is a ride or die, man. She encourages my weirdness, and if you say, "Hey, I think I want that," she'll go get it. So
she's your Sandy.
She is my Sandy. She just came out of the dark, and she loves robins, and up here they are.
Even little mechanical ones.
Yes, that eat bugs. So we talked a little bit about the David Lynch filmography. I think that my personal favorite of all David Lynch movies is Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. It's just something about it that I really, really like. It may not be his most well-known movie, but there's just something about the movie that I enjoy. It's like pure, uncut, not stepped on with baby powder or anything like that. David Lynch. It's just him being weird as hell. And Mulholland Drive is probably my second favorite. That one's really, really good. Wild at Heart, and then Blue Velvet.
You know what this snakeskin jacket represents, Eric?
It's a symbol of my individuality and belief in personal freedom.
That is exactly it.
We should do Wild at Heart sometime. Willem Dafoe in Wild at Heart is just nuts. Is with his weird fake teeth. Have you seen that? Have you seen Wild at Heart, David?
No, I'm looking it up right now.
Oh, you got to see it. It's a good one.
I was looking at Lost Highway. Let me look at Wild at Heart.
Yeah, Lost Highway is pretty good too. I have not seen Inland Empire. That's the only David Lynch movie I have of his main movies I have not seen.
It's the quote. Don't ask me to suck you. I won't suck you. Oh baby, she don't know what she's missing.
I just like at the beginning of Wild at Heart where he just bashes that guy's head in. You know, he just he's just like literally his brains and stuff are coming out of the back of his head. He's bashing it. Just it's nuts.
Pretty much sums up a Lynch film, though.
Yeah. So it was released on September 19th of 1986, $6 million budget, but it made $8 million at the box office, which made a profit, but it was huge in, it was bigger outside of America than it was in America. And it kind of established Lynch as a name in Europe, where he's even more revered there than he is here. There's a movie, a documentary that I saw. It's called The Art Life, and it's all about David Lynch's art. He's a really good painter, and he went to Philadelphia Art School and some other art places, and he talks about the influence of Dorothy being naked outside was inspired by a real life experience. When he was a kid, him and his brother saw a naked woman walking down the neighborhood street at night, and that he went and got his mom, and his mom called the police and stuff on her, but he never forgot how it affected him and how it just really kind of scarred him as a kid. And obviously that comes into play in this movie quite a bit.
Well, it sounds like his mom was way more on it than Sandy's mom. Sandy's mom's like, I'm gonna let you hang out for like a half hour and maybe get you a blanket. Yeah,
just maybe we'll get to that point. That's one of, I think, maybe intentionally or unintentionally the funniest parts of the movie to me. But we'll get to that part. So, also a little more trivia. Frank says "fuck" 55 times in this movie. Almost every line he says is "fucking it," and that David Lynch never says that. He just says, "Can you say the F word?" And Dennis Hopper's like, "Man, he's such a weird guy. He can write it, but he can't say it." And the only person to say "fuck" besides Frank is Ben when he salutes Frank. Here's to your fuck, Frank.
Here's to your fuck, Frank.
Yeah. Isabella Rossellini is Dorothy Valens. Kyle MacLachlan is Jeffrey. Dennis Hopper is Frank. I was looking at Dennis Hopper's filmography. 1986 was a banner year for Mr. Hopper, who came back from rehab and cocaine addiction and just having a wild, wild life. 1986, he did Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Hell yes.
River's Edge, Blue Velvet, and Hoosiers. And in Hoosiers, he got a Academy Award nomination. But I think the trio of Texas Chainsaw, River's Edge, and Blue Velvet are like his best, especially in River's Edge, where he's like the freaked out pot dealing guy who has his like dummy, his inflatable girlfriend.
Yeah,
it's such a weird movie. I think maybe we should do that one day, one of these days, and Texas Chainsaw 2, because he's wild as hell in that movie. And this movie is a big comeback for him, and he is responsible for directing The Hot Spot with Jennifer Connelly and Virginia Madsen and Don Johnson. Really, really good slow burn Southern noir type movie. And I don't want to sound sexist, peak Jennifer Connelly. If you have not seen it, you must see it. It's really good.
No, it didn't sound sexist. It just sounded pervy.
Pervy, yeah. So.
Yeah, don't have to worry about sex.
I'll be like Jeffrey. Be a total perv. You want to hit us with the critical consensus? Oh, let's talk about the other people. I love Frank's crew. You got Jack Nance as Paul, who is Jack Nance is in a lot of pretty much every David Lynch movie. He was in Eraserhead. I like the way he's on Paul, and he's like claps his hand, and it's just a weird Brad Dourif weirding it up as Raymond. That's it's a hell of a crew to have. Pre-Chucky Brad Dourif. All right, let's do the critical consensus.
All right. Blue Velvet, it was released in a very polarized reception in the U.S. The critics who did praise the film were often vociferous. The New York Times critic Janet Maslin directed much praise toward the performance of Hopper and Rossellini. Mr. Hopper and Miss Rossellini are so far outside the bounds of ordinary acting here that their performances are best understood in terms of sheer lack of inhibition. Both give themselves entirely over to the material, which seems to be exactly what's called for. She called it an instant cult classic, concluding that Blue Velvet is as fascinating as it is freakish and confirms Mr. Lynch's stature as an innovator, a superb technician, and someone best not encountered in a dark alley. Sheila Benson of the Los Angeles Times called the film the most brilliantly disturbing film ever to have its roots in small-town American life, describing it as shocking, visionary, rapturously controlled. Film critic Gene Siskel included Blue Velvet on his list of the best films of 1986 at the 5th spot. Peter Travers, film critic for Rolling Stone. Why do you have all these hacks in here? These are just, I've never heard of these names. Peter Travers, film critic for Rolling Stone, and named it the best film of the 1980s and referred to it as an American masterpiece. Upon its initial release, Woody Allen and Martin Scorsese called Blue Velvet the best film of the year, although apparently it disturbed Sun Yi. On the other hand, Paul Atanasio of the Washington Post said the film showcases a visual style utterly in command of his talents. That Angela Baldamenti contributes an extraordinary score, slipping seamlessly from slinky jazz to violin figures to the romantic sweep of a classic Hollywood score, but stated that Lynch isn't interested in communicating, he's interested in parading his personality. The film doesn't progress or deepen, it just gets weirder and to no good end. The general criticism from U.S. critics was Blue Velvet's approach to sexuality and violence. They asserted that this detracted from the film's seriousness as a work of art, and some condemned the film as pornographic. One of its detractors, Roger Ebert, stated that the large amount of jokey small-town satire in the film made it impossible to take its themes seriously. Ebert praised Rossellini's performance as convincing and courageous, but criticized how she was depicted in the film, even accusing David Lynch of misogyny. Degraded, slapped around, humiliated, and undressed in front of the camera. And when you ask an actress to endure those experiences, you should keep your side of the bargain by putting her in an important film. While Ebert in later years came to consider Lynch a great filmmaker, his negative view of Blue Velvet remained unchanged after he revisited it in the 21st century. The film is now widely considered a masterpiece and holds an approval rating of 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, based on 86 reviews with an average rating of 8.8 of 10. The website's critical consensus states, if audiences walk away from this subversive, surreal shocker not fully understanding the story, they might also walk away with a deeper perception of the potential of film storytelling. The film has a score of 75 of 100 on Metacritic that's based on 15 critics, indicating a generally favorable review. Looking back at his Guardian Observer review, critic Philip French wrote, the film is wearing well and has attained a classic status without becoming respectable or losing its sense of danger. Mark Kermode walked out of the film and gave the film a poor review. How can you walk out of it and review it? You didn't see it in its entirety. The part you saw annoyed you. Maybe the second half tied everything together. Mark, you're a sissy. Anyway, he gave it a poor review upon its release, but revised his view of the film over time. So apparently Mark went back in and watched it. In 2016, he remarked, as a film critic, it taught me that when a film gets really under your skin and really provokes a visceral reaction, you have to be very careful about assessing it. I didn't walk out on Blue Velvet because it was a bad film. I walked out on it because it was a really good film. The point at the time, I wasn't good enough for it.
Mark Kermode sounds like a chode, dude. What the fuck?
Yeah, he does. That guy.
Actually, I really like his YouTube videos, and he did a really good documentary on The Exorcist.
I agree. David, I'm going to call him Mark Kerchode from here on out. Although it initially Mark Kerchode, God damn it, we're genius. Although it initially gained a relatively small theatrical audience in North America and was met with controversy over its artistic merit, Blue Velvet soon became the center of a national firestorm in 1986, and over time became regarded as an American classic. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, after a release on videotape, the film became a widely recognized cult film for its darker depiction of suburban America. With its many VHS, Laserdisc, and DVD releases, the film reached broader American audiences. It marked David Lynch's entry into the Hollywood mainstream and Dennis Hopper's comeback. Hopper's performance as Frank Booth has itself left an imprint on popular culture with countless tributes, cultural references, and parodies.
I saw, to stop you there, I saw I didn't realize, I thought it was fake, but I guess I remember it was real. SNL had him on and he had a game show called What's That Smell?
What's That Smell?
Yeah. And people were smelling things and he was the host of it.
Yeah.
I totally forgot about that until I saw it on Instagram yesterday.
They had the one guy playing Judd Nelson. He goes, "That's a female hamster. She's ovulating." That's a freaky honker you got there, Judd. Oh, I so remember that. Anyway, the film's success also helped Hollywood address previously censored issues as Psycho. Blue Velvet had been frequently compared to that groundbreaking film. It had become one of the most significant, well-recognized films of its era, spawning countless imitations and parodies in the media. The film's dark, stylish, and erotic production design has served as a benchmark for a number of film parodies and even Lynch's own later work, notably Twin Peaks and Mulholland Drive. Peter Travers of Rolling Stone magazine cited it as one of the most influential American films, as did Michael Atkinson, who dedicated a book to the film's themes and motifs.
Talk about a lot of videos on it on YouTube with all sorts of analysis. There's like the Freudian analysis of sexual development where, supposedly Frank is the new substitute father and Dorothy is the mother to Jeffrey, and he's going through these different phases of psychological sexual development with the ego and the id and all this stuff. Like it's bullshit because I don't think that that David Lynch thinks about it that much.
I think David Lynch is just a weird dude, and he made weird movies.
Exactly. And he hated to explain stuff. When somebody asked him, "Can you elaborate on this?" and he says, "No." Can you explain about the themes of the movie? No. He wanted people just to experience it, and he didn't ever go in elaborate on what the true meanings were. He wants you to feel the movie and get your own meaning out of it instead of trying to pick his brain about it.
Or maybe there wasn't, and he was just making some shit up.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's this after he died, they talked to Guillermo del Toro. And he said something that I always thought. And go ahead, David.
No, I can wait. Go ahead.
Okay. He said something I always thought is that people think that David Lynch is ironic, like he's making fun of when he talks about the ravens and the light and the good in the world and stuff like that. They think he's making fun of it. It's not. He's not ironic. He truly believes that, and that's what Guillermo del Toro was saying. Is that that's two sides of David Lynch. He truly believes and likes the good that they're trying to bring out versus the evil in the world. So he's not really making fun of Sandy and Jeffrey when they talk about that. When Jeffrey's like, "Oh, why are there men like Frank in the world?" He's being honest about it. Go ahead, Dave. You had a point. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Who was the character again, that had the kind of like the a lot of makeup on the face, kind of pale face?
That was Ben.
Dean Stockwell.
Yeah, Dean Stockwell.
So I was looking at something today, going down that same line of, when I watched the movie, I wanted to look up some stuff on YouTube, and there was this one that said that Dean Stockwell's character was actually supposed to be your dream or represent your dreams within the movie. And I thought, where are people coming up with this shit? But that was, I think, one of them that, are they overthinking this stuff? Is that why they said that that's why he looked that way? He was supposed to represent your dream? Yeah.
And a lot of it, they're talking about the Dean Stockwell part where he was supposed to be actually singing into a microphone, but he saw that work lamp just laying there and he was just kind of practicing in it. And David Lynch is like, "Do that." that is much better than holding a microphone. Just do that. So where things are like happy accidents, and he wasn't really thinking about, oh, this is what this means, and blah blah blah, and
like gave him another time to use that line though too. Like now it's dark. The really cool bit for that is when he pulls up and he goes, "This is it." They get out, and then in neon in the window, "This is it."
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of themes that you see in David Lynch's movies, especially you see this one where it's a shot of the car on the highway, and you just see the middle, the stripes in the middle of the highway going past really, really fast. He does that a lot in this movie and in Lost Highway and in Mulholland Drive and Twin Peaks. Is just something that I think that's just a thing he likes. And there's the curtains, the billowing curtains, and this one of course are blue, but in Twin Peaks always had that red room with the red curtains and lights being blown out in traffic lights and candles and lights and stuff like that. There's all sorts of he has motifs that he loves to use over and over again.
See, I took Dean Stockwell's character as kind of just like it was like a pansexual pimp.
Yeah.
Which at the time in 1986, when we didn't watch this in 86, but I remember when the fuck did we watch this? Because I watched
it probably
this
had to
with
be like
you.
88 or 89 when it was on video. And
it had to be, because there was, I remember after watching it driving home thinking like, what the fuck were we just watching? Parts were really, really funny to me. But like at the time it was kind of tough to try to figure out what the hell was going on, because, any guy wearing makeup when we were in the 80s was that was a little frowned upon. And like now seeing it, it's just like, okay, that's how he feels comfortable, but fuck it. That's just how he wants to be. Well,
to me, when I watched him, I just thought he was dangerous. Like he was even more dangerous than Frank. Like if Frank sought him out for counsel and taught him, was kind of like mesmerized by him singing and the way he just kind of like casually punches Jeffrey in the stomach and the way he's acting and stuff like that. I just like, Frank is dangerous, but there's something even more dangerous about Ben. And I think maybe it does have to do with that kind of like weird sexual, the kind of, like you said, pansexuality about him. There's something dangerous about Ben compared to Frank, even though Frank was scary as hell. Something more mysterious was going on with Ben in my mind, at least.
See, he was the chaotic neutral.
Yeah.
I think the up for Frank, Ben was the down for, but Ben could go either way, where Frank never had a down. Frank was always up.
Yeah.
And I feel like Ben was more of a neutral and could go up and come back down.
Yeah. Because I like your interpretation of it.
But there was times in that scene where he could have been ultra, confrontational with him. But instead he just like, okay, Frank, here's to your fuck.
Yeah.
Why don't we have glasses? And instead of losing his cool, he's like, hey, where are the glasses? Pour some beer. You want me to pour the beer? No, I want you to fuck it.
Did he say toast to your health or whatever?
Yeah.
And he goes, nah, it's toast to something else.
Yeah, exactly. Let's toast to something else besides my health. The music is odd. Angelo Badalamenti does a lot of...
Hold on. You mean to tell me that in this just blasé, plain ass, boring, run of the mill film that even the music was odd? Wow, that really threw me for a loop.
Well, the thing about the music to me, it's very anachronistic, and I think the movie is kind of the same way though, because you don't really know, is this set in 1986 or is this in the 50s or is this a town where nothing really, progress never came to this town, where they're watching TV on very old TV sets, everything in their basements and like the music and the cars and everything seems to be older than necessary. There's nothing really like new, like even 86 new.
I think it was just things that Lynch liked that kind of fit his motif. Oh shit, what was I going to say? God damn it. I was going to make a point about the scene with Ben and Frank. Oh, Frank. Frank's very kind because he's got the whole infantilist kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
But even
Oral fixation,
with
has to chew on the velvet and all this kind of stuff.
velvet, but his unwillingness to just go, hey, I want you to candy color clown. He keeps mentioning it over and over just for no reason. He's like in the middle of a sentence, he goes, candy colored clown, like he's dropping hints.
Yeah.
And that was the part. It's like, okay, so is he either like he's doing this to pacify him, or he's doing it to beg because he just loves to watch it because he's so fucking suave.
Mm-hmm. So fucking suave.
Yeah.
When I saw that, when him singing, I know we're talking about the middle of the movie. I just thought that was so fucking weird when he's like lip syncing to Roy Orbison, and people are like Brett Dorff's doing this weird thing in the back. In the background, and and then
not as weird as the chick dancing on top of the car.
Yeah, the weird chick dancing on the top of the car when they go on a car ride and stuff.
And she wasn't even listening to the words or the beat. She was just going,
just kind of swaying,
just kind of doing whatever she felt like.
Well, the first part of this movie, when I watched it, and I didn't know what to think, it's like they show the white picket fences and the firemen on the old fire truck and all kind of stuff, and the dad is watering the lawn. And the hose tightens and it's like he's having a stroke, so it's pretty obvious what's going on. But when he's laying there and the stupid dog is drinking the water, I was just like, am I fucking supposed to laugh at this? I think this is funny, but it's also awful. Am I supposed to laugh at this? And later, as I got older, I would laugh my ass off on it. But when I first saw it, I wasn't prepared for that. I was just like, what is going on?
This is the great thing. I mean, I work in the arts, and I loved. I don't show my stuff anymore. I have no desire to. But when I would show stuff or even have stuff for sale, when people would approach you and they knew, man, they had your whole psyche figured out and dialed in. They're like, oh, what you're trying to say with this piece is you're trying to say this. And if it seemed like they were mildly interested, I'd say, yeah, but did you also consider this? And they're like, oh my God, now I see it. Now they see it. And they think that they've figured it out. And I'm like, okay, fucking buy it. You need to buy that. You need to buy that. And that was just part of, cause I myself went to art school. That was part of like what we did our senior year when they were teaching us to like how to write about our art, to basically talk about our process and our thought. And, one of the instructors went, you kind of have to fake it until you make it. If somebody comes up and they see a fucking puppy dog in the sky and they think that puppy dog is going to be, the rain is actually the puppy dog's urine because of something that happened to them and they believe you did it too, then you look them dead in the face and you say, yes.
Yeah, because that's like, their interpretation of it. That's what they want to see in it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the Ghostbusters. If somebody asks you for God, you say yes. And we can sit here and talk about the whole movie and all the like analysis you did, but this is 100% that, because I take the movie as a moving painting, that there is so many weird little things to see and to look at. Like when you observe a really interesting painting and you're looking at like brush strokes and you're noticing like weird bits of color, like, okay, did he just not clean his brush, or is that the way that's supposed to be? That's what David Lynch films are. I think some of it, because sometimes you're painting and you're like, oh, fuck, that didn't work, but you just leave it because it ends up looking kind of cool. I think that's David Lynch's existence in film.
You should watch that documentary called The Art Life. It's on free. I think it's on Max, but you can also watch it for free on the Criterion channel. It's really, really cool. And he's very, very talented painter. And go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, I want to go back to what Neil just said. I feel like every time I watch a David Lynch film, I see something that I didn't catch the first time. And it's whether it's just something going on screen. And I don't think it's as much with the dialogue. So with what Neil was talking about, like a painting, I feel that yeah, I see something in the background or a character doing something that you kind of stands out. Especially in what's it called? The Twin Peaks, especially the whole Twin Peaks series. As many times you could watch that over and over, you feel like there's something different each time.
This is, and Dave's artsy fartsy. He does the arts. He's like me. Eric, shut the fuck up for a little bit. This is the reason why I never really got behind tons of David Lynch movies, is because by the time I'm ready to watch a movie, it's at the end of the day and I'm fed up. I don't want to have to really think about what I'm watching. I want the bad guy to fall off a cliff or get shot in the head. I want the good guy to win. There's a time and a place for a film like that, kind of in the humdrum, wake up, eat, go to work, come home, eat, go to sleep, wake up, eat, that kind of thing that we do.
The monotony of everyday life.
Yeah, just the banality of it. And I think that's one of the issues I have, is that sometimes I'm just watching it and I'm like, God, I don't want to put the effort into watching this right now. I really don't. If it's a book, that one's easy. I can read for a little bit. I've been reading a book now for probably the better part of a year, and I'm reading it like 5 or 6 pages at a time because it's a pretty heavy read. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's enough for now. I got enough depressing shit in my life, and just put it down.
Well, I feel like, and Eric, you might agree with me on this one, is if you're going to watch a David Lynch movie, knowing that there's a bunch of crazy shit that's going on, I feel like when I sit down to watch it, I'm ready, because I'm ready to pay attention, and I'm trying to catch as much of that stuff as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, and that's where I was this time around. I told you the scene when he goes into the apartment for the first time, I'm like, no, fuck it. I had to pause it. I'm just not in a place for this weekend. Not ready. And then came back to it and watched the rest. And then the real problem is my wife came in to watch maybe the last 45 minutes of the movie, and her and my son were no idea what was going on. They're like, explain the plot. That guy found an ear. That guy right there found an ear. Well, why are they doing? What are they doing that for? Just, it's fucking weird stuff David Lynch does. You tell Eric, he picks the shittiest movies. I mean, he knows you. He knows what you think. He knows what you think.
Well, let's talk about Sandy a little bit and her character. And I think that Laura Dern is like David Lynch's muse. She's in a lot of his movies, and she was in Inland Empire, which is basically her solo in that movie. And I think she's a good actress, and I think she's cute and stuff, but her crying face
until she cries.
And I was talking to this with the guy at work, Kurt, who loves movies too, and he's like, well, nobody looks great when they cry. Everybody looks ugly when they cry. And I guess that's true, but Laura Dern looks really, really bad when she cries.
Sandy in this movie is in the echelon of Ellen Priscilla Ruth Griswold.
Mm-hmm.
She is that ride or die.
Yeah, she puts up a lot of shit and even becomes more attracted to Jeffrey as things go crazy. And let's talk about the end, which to me is, I don't know if it's intentionally or unintentionally, the funniest part to me is just the awkward time when Dorothy comes out naked and they bring her in the house, and then she's calling Jeffrey my secret lover and doing all this kind of stuff. And then she looks at Sandy and says, he put his disease in me. And I was just thinking like, okay, this is the worst main chick, side chick meeting that's ever happened in movies. Cause she's like, he put his disease in me. And she's freaking out. And he said it twice. And then the way that Isabella Rossellini or Dorothy looks on the stretcher, did you notice when they're pulling her out of the stretcher, her eyes are kind of rolled back? She just looks really, really awful. And they put her in the ambulance. She's like, "Oh, I'm falling," And it just made me laugh so much. But I don't think that it was intended, because it was just such the last thing you would want to do if you have the girl the girl that you want to woo, who's the sweet girl, and the bad girl that you're messing around with. You don't want that meeting to go like that.
This leads us to something that we've all heard at some point, but apparently Kyle MacLachlan, in his intense study of the chicken walk, never learned. And I'm going to share it with all 4 of our listeners in case you've never heard it. You never, ever, ever put your dick in crazy.
Yeah. But
Dave, are you paying attention?
David probably knows that pretty well, though.
I'm not saying anything.
Okay. It's probably smarter.
Well, just going through this really, really quick. That ear had a lot of hair on it. It's kind of gross. I'm not used to hair growing on the back of an ear. It's really really gross when he found the ear. Did you notice that? Ugh.
I don't know, man. As I'm progressing through my 50s, I'm amazed at the amount of hair that is growing inside my ears right now that I have to take care of on a daily basis. Are we going to discuss the Joy Ride?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's talk about that a little bit.
The end of the Joy Ride, because that was the really quotable part for I remember for us, because it's always him putting on the lipstick, pretty. You used to do that shit whenever you would put on chapstick. We would be you did. I forget where we were, because I think I spit out what I was drinking. And you pulled out chapstick, you put it on, you're like, pretty. And I just remember blasting it on people. And you're like, what the fuck? I'm like, that was really funny. But then kissing him, like, I'm going to send you a love letter. It's a bullet from a fucking gun. And then just out of nowhere, boom, feel my muscles. Yeah, you like that, don't you?
Dennis Hopper is so good as Frank that, I mean, I don't think anybody else could have played that character. He's just perfectly nuts, and just his eyes, when his eyes are, after he's huffing the amyl nitrate and looking at him, he's just, just so nuts.
That should have been helium. That needed to be helium.
That would have made it even freakier, because that was what intentionally it was supposed to be, is that it was supposed to be helium, but they thought, David Lynch thought it would just be too much, that people would think it just probably wouldn't process it. But I think that would be even scarier if Frank, started speaking really high, don't you fucking look at me. Don't look at me.
That would be so great. That's a bullet from a fucking gun.
Don't look at me. Now it's dark. Yeah. That whole scene where Dorothy takes him out by knife point, and that was a when I watched that, I was like, I hope my parents don't walk in the room during this part. Like, what the fuck are you watching? When I first saw this movie, because it's very, like, up to that point I have not seen anything like that in a movie, and it was just, it was pretty rough and pretty crazy.
How about Jeffrey's detective interpretive dance with his little, like, camera? Like, so he's got the camera in the box and nobody notices it, but he's doing interpretive dance to make it work.
Yeah, that's not obvious.
And how great are you that you can the well-dressed man who looks a lot like Frank, but with big ass eyebrows and a mustache
in a wig, yes.
When he looks up the stairwell, it was like a homicidal Groucho Marx.
Mm-hmm. It ended kind of abruptly to me. I just kind of felt like it kind of fizzled out at the end. Like they had to kind of come up with the ending, and then, Frank shows up. He has to go get the robe. He shows up to get the robe, and then he gets shot in the head and stuff. But it didn't feel like the climactic moment that I wanted to see between them. It just, especially after what happened just before, when Dorothy shows up at the naked in front of everybody. That was just that felt more insane than the last part of it. But the movie itself is just worth watching if you haven't seen it. It's pretty amazing. You like Neil pretty much summarized it really good, though. You have to be in the mindset to check it out, to kind of accept it. Same with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We talked about that when we reviewed that. You have to be in the mindset to be pushed, to be kind of, prodded a little bit, made feel uncomfortable. If you're not in that zone, you're not going to enjoy it. David, what are your thoughts?
I've always been a huge David Lynch fan. So watching this was really fun to watch it again, because it brought back memories in the early 2000s when I was really, really into movies. And I know we talked a lot back then about movies all the time. And I think you were the one that showed, like, kind of ushered in all these weird art house independent films for me in my life. But so watching it again, I think that watching Blue Velvet after Elephant Man really has made me, like, see all of David Lynch's movies in a different light. And what I appreciate on this episode is that we didn't just talk about the movie, that I thought we paid a lot of respect to David Lynch in the process of this movie. We talked about the movie, of some, but I think we covered some good tidbits about who David Lynch was.
Well, I've read a lot of tributes on even on Twitter and just in on Instagram and stuff like that. And a lot of the way that we felt is kind of universal. This movie was like the introduction to so many people to art house movies or artsy movies or movies that were about something different than just what the surface level was like. And I would just I almost even say it's akin to when David Bowie died. The overwhelming outpouring of positive talk about him, all the people that worked with him, all the women that worked with him, all the even everybody said that he was a good guy, that he saw something in them that they didn't see in themselves when they cast him, that he was a super gentleman, that he was just a good person. There was a like a vigil, like an altar out in front of Bob's Big Boy in Burbank, because he would eat every day at 2:30 at Bob's Big Boy in Burbank and get a cup of coffee and a chocolate shake, and and then write down his ideas on Bob's Big Boy napkins. And he was a character, and I think Neil talked about it in the movies where he's deaf, how loud he speaks and stuff, and is in the Twin Peaks movies and stuff. But yeah, he really was like the person that guided a generation to watching these types of movies and develop his own style. There's Lynchian is a term that people try to imitate, but not really too many people can actually achieve.
And how to enjoy a damn fine cup of coffee.
Yes, in a piece of pie.
I've been there. I've been to that diner, and I got I had a damn fine cup of coffee and a great piece of pie. Like I went there for that sole purpose.
Nice.
Yeah, it's awesome. That just shows how influential he is, and his movies, just like anybody's output, there's some that are really, really good, some aren't that great, but there's no doubt that you're watching a David Lynch movie when you're watching it, because it takes you to a different place when you when you see it. The there's that part in Wild at Heart when Laura Dern is talking about her cousin Dale and how he would like make sandwiches all day, whatever, and it's Crispin Glover.
Yeah.
And he's just, I'm making my lunch. And there's no other purpose for that except for just have a weird aside of Crispin Glover making peanut butter sandwiches over and over again. It's just the weird shit like that.
Perfect person for the perfect role.
Exactly. Neil, have anything to add?
No, I don't. Yeah. Now, being a little removed from the events before I watched it, having not put me in the mood to watch it, and now, yes, enjoyed it. It's not one of those movies I would go out of my way to watch, but it is one that it's like, okay, I have seen it. Like you go to France, you hear all about the Mona Lisa. You go see. I'm not comparing this movie to the Mona Lisa, by the way. You go see the Mona Lisa, and you're like, okay, cool. Now I've actually seen it. But you don't actually really get to consider it until you're away, because there's fewer people. You can actually see pictures of it and actually see the detail better. And I think this is one of those kind of movies. You can watch it, but then something like this, to like actually sit down and chat about it, makes you appreciate and think about it more, rather than having just a solo thought about it. Yeah. Because there's a lot of different points of view. Like you read all of those, but then I have mine. And then David has his, which is correct because he said it was a lot like mine. Yours is fucked up, but whatever.
Yeah, it's not one of those things you're just going to chill out and put on the back of at a party. Hey, everybody, let's watch Blue Velvet. But it's one of those movies that I've watched every couple of years. It's not one of those that's constantly in the rotation. But I think maybe Mulholland Drive is probably the movie that you can watch because there's that kind of labyrinthine mystery to it, and then you can watch. And of course, Naomi Watts is in it, and she's looking great in that movie. Billy Ray Cyrus is in it for some reason.
Really?
Yeah.
I do not remember.
He was the pool boy that was having an affair with the director's wife, and he beats the shit out of the director as well. Just really
Okay.
weird, like, out of nowhere. Hey, that's
All
Billy
right.
Ray Cyrus.
Yeah, I remember Naomi Watts, Justin Theroux, and Ann Miller, but okay. I may have to take a quick peek through that just to see.
That has the scariest moment of any non-horror movie to me. And it's the diner scene where the guy's talking about his nightmare. That is just scarier than almost like 90% of horror movies. And I won't give it away, but if you watch Mulholland Drive, it's just this little piece in the middle, but it is so well done and so tense and just scary as shit. And it's just so weird and out of place. You're like, why is this in here? But it's just this waking nightmare of a moment in the movie. It's just it really stands out. The diner scene in Mulholland Drive.
I've seen the movie one time.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go back and watch that again. I don't really remember that well.
Anyway, so that's our Blue Velvet episode. Rest in peace to David Lynch. We are going to head into Fantasy February, and it's going to be Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers next week, which I haven't seen in a while. That's probably the one I watched the least out of them, but it's on Max to stream.
That's the one with the two towers in it, though.
It is with the two towers, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where the one has like when the king comes back. Like a good name for that would be like Return of the King.
And on Max, they have the animated Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings movie. They have the animated Hobbit movie, and they have the animated Return of the King movie, all for the first time on streaming. So I want to watch the Return of the King one because I always really enjoy that part with Eowyn versus the Witch King in the animated one. That one just is imprinted on my soul as a kid who watched it in like 1980 when it came out.
Oh, those goblins messed me up as a kid.
Yeah,
those giant mouths and their big like pelican.
Where there's a whip, there's a way, or whatever that song is.
Yeah, down to Goblin Town. They just open up these giant cavernous mouths. No, I'm literally the size of a hobbit when I watched this. I did not appreciate that at all.
Yeah, childhood trauma there. David, will you be here next week?
I need to check the schedule. I don't remember if we're traveling that day or Monday for that meeting down in Phoenix.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. You can hit us up on rvspodcast222@gmail.com. Let us know what you think of the new logo. If you have any film suggestions. Neil just mentioned Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which I'm surprised we haven't done yet. So we definitely got to do that one. That's a classic.
I didn't mention it out loud. I mentioned it in the chat just so someone doesn't think they missed something.
Yeah, in the chat. Neil typed it in there. We're on Blue Sky. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. And
no Threads. Nothing's happening on Threads. Threads
and stuff. But thanks, Neil, for the new logo. It looks really good. Adds a little color to our brand. So thank you.
Welcome. Thanks, I feel most proud about the tagline.
Yeah, it was very good. So
thank you.
Check it out, everybody. Have a great week.
Yeah, everybody have a great week. And although you'll have heard this after the fact, I hope you have a pleasant day off if you get it off for MLK Day.
I do. Goodbye, everybody.